Quick update on the wildest plan the UFC has cooked up in years. The White House show is still on, but it's sliding from July 4th, 2026 to June. Same vibe, bigger stage, they're lining up weigh-ins at the Lincoln Memorial, giant screens on the mall, fireworks in the sky, and the actual fight set on the South Lawn. No public tickets, just invite only, which means the crowd will be tight, clean, and loud with VIP energy. Fighters warming up inside the White House before they walk out. That's the kind of visual that breaks the internet. The timing change isn't a backtrack, it's logistics. If anything, it gives them more runway to make this thing look like a movie. You'll see that Lincoln backdrop on face-offs for the next decade in every highlight reel. But that wasn't the only thing popping off this week. Tom Aspinall flew into Paris and got the first booze of his career. Not because he did anything wrong, he just walked into Cyril Gaines's backyard. French fans showed up for their guy and made sure Tom heard it. He didn't blink. He kept it simple. Gaines the challenge in front of him, and if Tom's right hand lands, anybody can go. The press conference started polite and ended with some real tension later at the hotel. Cyril's coach, Fernan Lopez, rolled up on Tom and asked him point blank about those Gaines ducked me comments. Tom said from his side, it felt like he kept getting told Gaines' name, then seeing something else happen. Fernan said from their side, there wasn't a real ask until Manchester, and they never passed on anything. It wasn't a screaming match, it was two camps laying out two different versions of the same timeline. Tom stood on his story without calling anyone a liar. Fernan stood on his without calling Tom delusional. In the end, they shook hands like adults who know they're going to settle this in a cage anyway. Sometimes grown men talk, clear the air, and make the fight even better.
I'll just Cyril, you just do your thing, man. You just do your thing, I'll just chill. If I hit anybody, I think if I hit anybody, I can knock anybody out. Cyril's the guy I'm fighting, so he's the biggest test right now. John Jones is retired, so I don't really have much to say on that, to be honest. I don't really care about belts and stuff. I just care about my next fight.
Paris didn't calm down after that. At the weigh-ins, Imavov's side and a teammate repping Caio Borralho nearly went hands in front of the stage. Managers, teammates, pushing and yelling, security sliding in before it turned into a side brawl on a Friday. The tension between those camps didn't show up overnight. They've been needling each other online for months. The face-off after that was ice cold, no smiles, no games. The kind of stare that tells you both corners are done with jokes. It's one thing when fighters sell a fight, it's another when the people getting 10% are ready to swing too. You could feel it rolling through the crowd if the managers are nearly at it. What do you think the main event's gonna look like? Then we lost a good one. Patricio Pitbull Freir's UFC debut was supposed to be the Flex champion pedigree. Short notice travel, make the weight, prove he's elite under any banner. He did his part. He stepped up and hit 145 like a pro. His opponent, Lawson Nikita, didn't. He missed by 3, and from there it was over. Pitbull wasn't playing the catchweight game, and he shouldn't have to. He got on the plane, crossed time zones, and made the number. If you live closer and you still miss, there's nothing left to talk about. Pitbull blasted him respectfully, and then spun straight to what's next. Rio de Janeiro. He wants a dance partner who can make the weight and make sense, and he threw Arnold Allen's name into the air. That's a real fight. Allen's footwork and durability against Pitbull's timing and power. It stung to lose the debut on a scale, but Pitbull's not hurting for options. One call, one contract, and that man's in a war again. Let's swing to Vegas, because this next piece has folks' eyebrows touching their hairlines. There's a report floating around saying Dana White owes Red Rock Casino a massive marker, over $25 million, maybe more, tied to high-limit baccarat and blackjack. The key words here are report and allegedly. It's Vegas and big whales swim in deep water. It's not the first time Dana's talked about huge swings either. He's bragged about 7-figure wins, admitted to ugly nights, and he doesn't hide from the tables. The twist is, it's Red Rock owned by the Fertitta brothers, who used to own the UFC and are tight with Dana. That's why some people think even if the number's real, it's not the kind of debt that triggers a public meltdown. Friends, business history, billions made together, it's a different kind of math. Casinos extend credit because whales bring action, and markers aren't like bank loans. Still, $25 million is a number that makes fight fans choke on their coffee. Will the casino push hard? Maybe. Will they give him room because of who he is? Also maybe. Dana's not broke, he's not hiding, and he's not the kind of guy who runs from a bad night. This one will either fade quietly or explode if somebody makes it a point. For now, pin it as talk of the town and move on. Speaking of talk of the town, Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell gave the internet a full sermon this week. Not about elbows, not about a rematch, but about the shape of the earth. Ilia Topuria made fun of Bryce's flat earth take on a podcast called The Idea Dumb, basically said even if it were true, who cares, it changes nothing. Bryce did not take that well. He fired off a video rattling off scripture like it was fight tape, saying Ilia wasn't even arguing with him, he was arguing with God. He went straight to Genesis and the word firmament and then stacked verse after verse. The earth doesn't move, the sun moves around the earth. The earth is a circle but not a globe. Measure it with a line, this and that. He challenged Ilia to a debate where the only source is the Bible. No NASA, no school. He called the science indoctrination and told Ilia to open the book if he was going to call himself a Christian. It's classic Thug Nasty, dead serious, zero wink, taking a stance that only he can take, and making sure the whole fight world hears it. Whether you agree or not, Bryce knows how to get eyes. He's not out here asking for a rematch on merit. He's saying, meet me on a stage and argue the universe. The twist is, these two actually fought already, and Ilia gave Bryce his first L, so there's a little spice baked in. Ilia's probably not going to stand behind a lectern and debate a dome, he's focused on belts and bodies, but the call-out still hits. It reminds you there are different types of fighters. Some talk rankings, some talk bank accounts, and some talk the book. Bryce is the last one. He's not pretending. If anything, he's doubling down. And if he grabs another win, don't be shocked if he brings a Bible to the mic and keeps pressing his case. The man believes, and in his mind, that belief isn't a gimmick, it's who he is. While that storm rages online, circle back to heavyweights. Tom versus Cyril is a clean fight between two modern big men who don't lumber around. Tom's got that snap and grin, you can see him finding the counter mid-combination. Cyril's got the glide, light on his feet, kicks like a welterweight, the kind of balancing act that turns giants into statues. The question everyone's chewing on is whether Cyril has plugged the grappling holes that Francis and John exposed. Tom will test that with pressure, not just pure wrestling. He forces scrambles, and big men hate scrambles because tired muscles make slow choices. If it stays pure kickboxing, Cyril's in his element. If Tom makes it ugly for 6 minutes, the fight flips. The booze in Paris won't matter in Abu Dhabi. Everyone will hear nothing but breath and hand tape, and the small choices will pick the winner. Back to Imavov and Baralo for a second, because their camp's nearly starting a side fight is actually telling. Imavov's best work comes when he's loose and sniping. Baralo's best work comes when he's suffocating. Cage, hips, mat, repeat. That pre-fight scuffle wasn't just drama, it was the perfect mirror of their styles, sharp versus grind. The managers and teammates almost mixing it up just added fuel. The fight itself was always going to answer the question, can Imavov make Caio pay for every entry, or does Caio turn it into a slow cooker and walk away with a clear win? Either way, both of those guys are hugging the edge of the rankings that really matter. One more W, and you're sitting across from someone with a number low enough to change your life. Now the White House card. Let's not pretend we're too cool to get goosebumps. Fighters stepping onto the South Lawn under a summer sky, fireworks capping off a headliner, and the Lincoln Memorial weigh-in photo that'll live forever. That's the kind of stuff you tell your kids about. Will it be purely ceremonial with a bunch of seated suits? Maybe in the first rows, but you know how this goes. Put a cage somewhere special, and the violence makes it sacred in a different way. The walkouts will slap, the commentary will try to stay soft and then forget and start yelling. Someone's gonna hit a knockout that pushes the fireworks cue early, and yes, there will be people who roll their eyes. Those people are gonna clip it anyway because it's history, whether you like it or not. It's also worth pointing out how fast the fight world can turn on you. Tom was everyone's favorite when he called out John for ducking. Now he's walking into a city that wants him quiet. Pitbull was about to punch his way into the UFC and got blocked by a scale. Kita looked like a big-time addition and face-planted on accuracy day. Managers felt like they had to throw hands to keep the energy even. Dana's high-roller stories stopped being fun for a second when a number with 2 commas got whispered out loud. Bryce turned a podcast jab into a pulpit. And through it all, the map keeps changing. That's why people stay locked in. It's not a sport where the power stays put. It moves every weekend. Zoom out one more time. The thing tying all this together is accountability. The White House show moved because logistics matter. The Paris booing won't matter in the cage, but the coach versus champ conversation showed 2 men willing to say from my side, this is what happened. The manager stepping up and then stepping back before a brawl showed someone in security can still do their job. Pitbull said no to a catchweight because he did the hard part, and the other guy didn't. That's how you protect the game. Dana's situation is between him, his wallet, and a casino, but when you live out loud, the tabs get tall in public. And Bryce? He's accountable to what he believes, even if it makes half the world call him crazy. You don't have to agree with any of it to see the through line. This week was a stress test. Some folks passed, some folks got a postponement, some folks are gonna feel it when the doors open and the cameras go red. If you want a prediction to hold on to, take this. Tom and Cyril won't need the judges. One of them is walking out with new highlights and a bruise he'll be proud of. Pitbull will get a name in Rio, and the number on that name will be enough to mean something. Imavov or Borrallo will jump a spot that actually puts them in a Shark Tank. Dana will either shrug this off like every other chips and cards rumor or go dead quiet and settle it in private, which is usually how whales swim. And Ilia won't be debating anyone about the firmament, but if Bryce wins again, that conversation will pop back up like a jab you didn't see coming. That's the fight game. Punches land, stories land too. One last note on the whole flat earth thing before we close the book. It's easy content to mock and the internet already did its lap. But what Bryce did here, intentionally or not, is reframe the fight. When a challenger can't touch the champ's belt today, he tries to touch his brand. If Ilia is the cold-blooded technician who beats everyone, Bryce is the believer who won't bend. That tension sells every time. If they somehow cross paths again, the microphones will melt before the gloves do. And if they never fight, you'll still remember the time a guy asked the champ to debate the sky. Alright, that's the slate. White House in June instead of July, still massive. Paris gave us booze, a handshake, and a near melee. Pitbull stays a pro, asks for a real opponent who acts like one. Vegas whispers big numbers. Bryce throws scripture like jabs. And the heavyweights are lining up to settle who owns the big room this fall. If you're into this kind of wrap-up that cuts the fluff and gets straight to the clips that matter, hit the like button, drop your takes on the Bryce versus Ilia thing and the Dana debt rumor, and I'm reading the comments. See you in the next one.